And that jarring cacophony tells you that you're listening to the Power of Three podcast. It's another Monday, so that means it's another new adventure as we continue our latest mini-series, looking at those adventures that were too broad and too deep for the TV screen, published back in the 1990s by Virgin Publishing. I'm Kenny Smith, and today we are looking at Blood Harvest, and I'm joined live for the first time by somebody who's become a good pal online. You better introduce yourself, my new good pal online.
I am James Hadwen-Bennett, and I am occasionally a reading person on Power of Three and others. But today I am me.
You are indeed, and we're talking about a fun new adventure.
And to misquote John Pertwee, I have no idea who me is at the moment, so this is going to be...
We do have those moments regularly in life, but but that's because you've been doing an awful lot of voice. But we will come to that later on as to why people may be thinking, why is James not of his own mind?
Yes.
Or voice.
Yeah, voices are strange at the moment. But Blood Harvest.
Yes.
It's one of those ones where I remember reading it, and I remember, oh yeah, that's the one with such and such. And when I reread it, it's like, I don't remember half of this. And it's just, and you think, oh, it's Terrance Dicks. It's going to be a nice, easy read. And you get all this wonderful family, cozy. Oh my God, they killed how many people in one page? And it's just this bizarre book. Oh my God. But it's great. I will say now that there's a lot of things wrong with it, but unreservedly, I love this book.
That's good to hear.
It is the New Adventures almost at their most New Adventures-ished. However you want to pronounce that.
Absolutely. I know what you mean. There's virtually all it misses is really is a bit of pewter space, and then we'd be there. But
yeah, I'm just trying to think. I'm sure they could have got some in as a kind of like a pre-prologue kind of thing.
Yeah. Or in Gallifrey, they could have fitted in. But hey, we're slightly getting ahead of ourselves with that. But yeah, so as you said, we're talking about Blood Harvest, the 28th New Adventures novel, which was published on the 21st of July, 1994, just a month and 2 days after my 20th birthday, and features a cover by Bill Donohoe. It's quite a nice cover, although obviously it's not representative of what happens in the book.
I was about to say, you look at the cover and you think, oh, that's really interesting. I wonder what... if you're flicking through 250 pages, it's like, where is that cover? It's like, but it's like all the Agatha Christie ones, like the giant bee outside the plane and everything. It's like, yeah, you've just kind of picked an image, haven't you?
And you're just making it stick. But I mean, I suppose atmospherically it works because you do get the feeling that you can see there's a vampire there, and you can see there's Benny, and it's in a spaceship. So yeah,
yes, I suppose it's supposed to be early on in the Benny bit when she's first exploring the tower.
Yeah.
But yeah, the girl is the wrong way up for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
A phrase I never thought I would ever utter.
No. I'm not going to put any innuendo in because I don't want to anger Dave Steele. I'm told off enough for that. But hey, let's have a quick look over in the back cover, and it tells us, Ducks peddling bootleg liquor in an illegal speakeasy. You're carrying a gun from Ace, which makes you no better than any other gun mall. And I do apologise to all our listeners in Chicago for that. I did make him a bit New York, but there we go. But what else does it tell us? Decker is a private eye, an honest one. But when Al Capone hires him to investigate a new joint called Docks, he knows this is one job he can't refuse. And just why are the Doctor and Ace selling illegal booze in a town full of murderous gangsters? Meanwhile, Bernice has been abandoned on a vampire-infested planet outside normal space. There, she meets a mysterious stranger called Romana Devora Trelundar and discovers an ancient and malevolent power linking 1929 Chicago with a layer of immortal evil. The consequences of this story are inextricably linked to events in the Doctor's past. So there we go. It's quite a good back cover blurb, that one.
It's brilliant. I mean, it does capture it perfectly. It would be nice, again, if the bit about the Doctor's past wasn't literally just like the last two lines of the book.
Yes.
I think that's kind of bigging it up just a little bit. But yeah, of course, the thing we've got to mention, though, is that this is part one of a two-part story.
Absolutely, and we have previously covered part two when we looked at the missing adventure goth opera, when we had Paul Cornell and Elizabeth Miles on to discuss it. But yes, it's the first half of it, really, which is an interesting way to work things. But I think it was a great idea to do that, a really good way to launch the missing adventures.
It really was, and it did help that goth opera completed the story in an unexpected way. Because again, just skipping slightly ahead, the ending of Blood Harvest is a little bit blink and you miss it. But of course, you've then got an entire 60-something thousand words continuing it in another book, which makes up for maybe some of Terrance's shortcomings.
We shall come to those again before too long. But I love the whole idea of the Doctor sort of being on the hunt for Agonal, which is a great name. Sort of just agony. It's just there's something about it. It's such a good name. It's
everything in the book is named brilliantly.
Yes,
the Chicago scenes, you can see Terrance has kind of got his list of Chicago gangsters out. And it's like, yeah, he's got a great name. I'll use him. He's got a great name. Oh, he's called Fred. Won't use him. Yeah. The only downside to that is that some of the names are a bit similar. But Agonal stands out. He's brilliant. I would like to know more about Agonal.
Yeah, he's just there.
It's kind of suddenly we've got this whole new past for the Doctor. Oh, yeah. I was a researcher and I researched Agonal and I get this message about it. Like, excuse me? When was this? Like, you're suddenly dropping in great chunks of mythology of the Doctor. And it's just like, we would have liked to have maybe again had a prologue set on Gallifrey when you were researching it. One of the things that my brain is incapable of doing is forgetting things sometimes. And I was reading this and I was thinking, well, hold on. In the Web Planet, the Doctor said he was when he was doing his researches into the Isop galaxy. And I was just like, just exactly how many things did the Doctor research on Gallifrey before he got bored? And I thought, well, actually, hold on. Maybe Agonal comes from the Isop galaxy. Maybe it's... And it's all these kind of links my brain starts making, and it's just like, oh my God. You know, I want to turn my brain off and read this book. It's like, no. You're going to...
Yeah, maybe he was one of the light gods from the Web Planets that sort of ties in with Christopher Bullis's Twilight of the Gods. There you go. There we go. I'm sort of closing that circle just a little bit tighter, just because I completely get your brain pain. I know that kind of thing. In fact, shall we pause just now and have the first reading? Because you've very kindly read the DWM Prelude for us. Shall we drop that in now?
Yes. Please don't play it to me, though.
Okay. Cover your ears for the next 7 minutes.
Chicago, 5th December, 1933. A clear, cold winter's night with fine snow drifting upon the air. A little group of men stood outside a modest 3-story house in a quiet residential street just off Dearborn Avenue. Lights glowed behind curtained windows, and the soft throb of jazz came from inside. The men were staring at the open door, or rather at the space just above. Suddenly, there was a crackle of electricity, and the discreet sign lit up. In neat red neon letters, it read, Doc's Place. A ragged cheer went up from the little crowd. 3 men stood at the front of the group. One was enormous, another just very big. The third man, older than the others, was slim and silver-haired. The biggest of the 3 men, who looked like a gorilla in evening dress, said, Legit at last, and it only took a few years. Doc was right, hey Luigi? Doc was right about most things, Happy, said the silver-haired man. He sure was, said the third man quietly. Unlike the first 2, immaculate in their tuxedos, he wore a rumpled blue suit and an ancient trench coat. A battered fedora was jammed on the back of his head. The silver-haired man stared at the sign for a moment and then raised his voice. "Very well, gentlemen, your first drink is on the house." "That's tonight only," roared the gorilla-like man. "Tomorrow, you mugs gotta pay up as usual." There was another cheer, and most of the crowd rushed into the house. The three men lingered for a moment, looking at the sign. The big man said, "It's a nice sign, Luigi. Real class. Doc would have liked it." The silver-haired man looked pleased. "Thank you, Mr. Decker. I'd better get inside, help my barman hand out those free drinks." He hurried into the house, and the other two followed. In the luxurious hallway, the massive Happy went to close the door. Decker said, "Leave it open, Happy. Come one, come all." "Hey, that's right." Happy Harrigan shook his head wonderingly. He pointed to the little shutter, set head high in the door. "No more looking at the suckers through the shutter, nobody giving the password. I'm sick. I want to see the dark. It don't seem natural." Decker said, "You'll get used to it, Happy. Watch the door all the same. No drunks, no troublemakers." "Sure thing, Mr. Decker." Decker went down the hallway and into the bar. He went up to the bar, sat on his usual stool, and lit a cigarette. Luigi put a bourbon in front of him, and he sat drinking and smoking and staring into space, remembering. Angry voices brought him out of his reverie. The place was crowded by now, with people fighting for seats and places at the bar. The air was thick with smoke, and the noise of excited voices almost drowned out the jazz combo. Above all the racket, he heard a customer yelling at a frightened waiter. "I tell you, I'm gonna sit right there. It's empty, ain't it?" He was pointing at an empty alcove to the right of the bar. The waiter said, "Excuse me, sir, you don't understand." The customer, a burly, flashily dressed, blue-chinned character, shoved him aside. Decker sighed, slid off his stool, and moved across to the front of the alcove, barring the customer's way. The seat in the alcove's reserved. "Yeah? Says who?" Decker studied the man for a moment before replying. The man wore a cheap tux with a bulge under the left arm. A stranger. Out-of-town hood, thought Decker. Detroit or Cleveland. Maybe even New York. A lot of new talent was moving into Chicago now the big fellow had been put away at last. "Says me," said Decker, wearily, answering the question. "And who the hell are you?" "The name's Decker. Thomas Decker." The hood shifted uneasily under Decker's hard stare. He was deciding whether or not to push it. To help him make up his mind, Decker unbuttoned his jacket, letting the guy see the butt of the Colt 45 automatic under his arm. The handle of the Colt was worn and shiny. It had seen a lot of use. The man licked his lips. "You a cop?" "Private. And the seats still reserved." Decker saw the anger flare in the man's eyes, saw his right hand twitch, and realized he was going to go for it. He tensed, and a huge man with a round red face stepped between them. "And just what might be going on here?" Decker said, "Evening, Captain Riley. Nice to see you. I was just explaining to our friend that the alcove's reserved." Captain Dennis Riley of Chicago's finest said irritably, "To be sure it is. Everyone knows that." He glared at the hood. "That seat's reserved for Doc, the guy who started this place. A personal friend of mine, so beat it." He jabbed a finger as thick as a banana in the stranger's chest. The hood staggered back and disappeared into the crowd. Riley said, "I suppose we ought to be patient with the poor fella. He's new in town. He'll learn. If he lives." Riley said, "Ah, sure, there's always that. Is Doc back in Chicago?" "Not that I know of. He's traveling." Great guy, that Doc. Great guy, that Doc. Those were the days, hey Decker. Sure were. Riley had once tried to kill Doc and Decker back in those good old days, but he obviously didn't bear any malice. Riley sighed. Now prohibition's over and booze is legal again, how's the poor corrupt police captain to make a living? He nodded and moved away, and Decker went back to his stool. Luigi put another bourbon in front of him. I was getting ready to duck. We're never going to make a profit if you keep shooting the customers, Mr. Decker. It's lucky Riley broke it up. He asked if Doc was back. Decker lit another cigarette and sipped his drink, remembering a time not so long ago when booze was illegal. Capone ruled Chicago, and the sound of bombs and Tommy guns was as routine as the roar of traffic. He remembered a small, grey-eyed man known as Doc, and a deadly, dark-haired girl they called the Lady in Black. Luigi was polishing a glass. You think he'll ever come back to Chicago, Mr. Decker? Him and Miss Ace? Beats me, Luigi. Tom Decker glanced at the empty alcove and raised his glass. But if he does, his usual chair will be waiting for him.
Thank you very much for that, James. And you didn't need to hear yourself, so you can take your fingers out. I'm just waving now for the benefit of you two.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
There you go. There you go. You're back with us. So a good prologue there to set things up. I mean, this is a very much as like Shakedown will later be. It's a 3-act tale.
Yes,
and I think it absolutely works for that. Obviously, the third act is very, very short.
And also, Acts 1 and 2 are not Acts 1 and 2. It's Act 1A, Act 2A, Act 1B, Act 2B. And again, flicking between the two, I think if you just had all the Chicago stuff, and then you just had all the Benny stuff, it wouldn't have been such an interesting read. But the parallels between them, because you kind of interleaving them, you got the big gangster meeting. Oh, you got the meeting of the tribal chief kind of things. You've got the slaughter of the gangsters. You've got the slaughter of the peasants. This wonderful mirroring, and it's just like, okay, so, and once you realise this, it's like, okay, so this is happening in Chicago. Okay, how's this going to then feed into, what we later realise is E-space somehow. Oh, Terrance.
Yes, the E-space thing, we will, again, slightly problematic given how difficult things were for Adric, but hey, it is what it is. Maybe the TARDIS has improved since then.
It's also the kind of, the fact that the planet is seemingly completely different. I mean, there's this big thing in State of Decay that's the village, in a way that number 6 would be jealous of. That's the village, there is nothing else, And then suddenly in Blood Harvest, we've got this village. Oh, other lords were infected, other areas were infected, and no one comments on it. Romana doesn't comment on it. You'd think Romana would remember that there was a secluded thing, and the Doctor, again, something that it took me a moment to remember because I'm reading these out of sequence. Blood Harvest, of course, comes after Blood Heat. So it's not actually the original TARDIS in Blood Harvest. And I'm thinking, well, was that why it was so easy to jump backwards and forwards into E-space? Because that's a TARDIS from a different universe. It's just like, so much in this book. He could have put in about another 10 or 15,000 words to explain it.
No doubt, full of retro continuity, because this is the point when you realise that obviously we had Time Worm Exodus by that point, and he's picking up on the warlords and expanding upon them.
Yes.
And basically he's becoming Mr. Sequel to his own work.
Which he would then redo in The Eight Doctors. Yeah. Because, of course, The Eight Doctors revisits State of Decay, revisits Flavia's Gallifreyan presidency, and it's like... everything in Doctor Who, I don't like calling them the wilderness years. I prefer to call them the free-for-all years. Because wilderness implies there was nothing. It's like, no, there were so many things competing and fighting. And it's just like, there's got to be a better thing than wilderness. So I think free-for-all, because every single author seems to have their own take on how things should be progressing.
Yeah.
The other thing I did wonder if Terrance was holding out to do a sequel to Blood Harvest. So I'm wondering if he was going to kind of say, oh, somewhere down the line, which technically did, but in a sneaky way, the Council of Three, they're going to come back in another book to wreak their revenge on the Doctor, so it will be a sequel to a sequel to a sequel.
It's the sort of thing you could imagine wanting to do, but
yeah.
But I think if we look at the different storylines, I love the whole idea of the Doctor as this sort of running a speakeasy in Prohibition times. It's McCoy, particularly in the New Adventures outfit. You can totally see it, just that suit, the cream suit.
He's in a tuxedo as well.
Yep.
I would love, this is one which is crying out for an illustrated special edition. There's so much beautiful imagery in it. As I say, you've got, well, for people like you, there's Ace in slinky little black dresses. There's you've got the gorgeousness of Chicago in the 30s with the architecture and everything. You've got great towers. It's just everything is just like so beautifully described. You've got the great ornate painting, which is the secret doorway. And it's just like everything says, yeah, this would make a brilliant special edition as a kind of a tribute to Terrance Dicks's attitude and world building skills.
Yeah, although they might need to edit a little moment in particular where Ace is physically threatened. That's uncomfortable.
I was going to get to that, yeah, because I had completely forgotten that.
So had I,
and I realised there is a reason I had completely forgotten it, because before I kind of edited stuff and kind of was trying to get things together in my mind about the book, I thought, I'll look at iWho, because I know you look at iWho for the reviews and everything.
Yeah.
And iWho, it's brilliant. I mean, apart from the story summaries and everything, they've got memorable moments and they've got, character development and everything. But they've got the sex and spirits and they've got the arse-whooping section.
Mm-hmm.
Ace's incident isn't mentioned in the sex and spirits.
No, it's not. I was surprised at that, and I think it's briefly touched on, isn't it, in the summary?
It's mentioned somewhere, but say you would think for such a pivotal plot moment, which really you do not expect in a Terrance Dicks novel.
No,
it's just like that came out of nowhere, and I was reading it. I'm thinking, not only is it kind of shocking that he puts it in, but you've then got the two different attitudes to how Ace should respond to it. You've got Decker's version and you've got the Doctor's version. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, yeah, can we not have this kind of insight into the Doctor telling Ace that she shouldn't be kind of furiously angry? And it's like, yeah, sorry folks, I'm with Decker on this one.
I think that's one of the things, though, with perhaps Terrance being an older gentleman at this time, perhaps slightly out of tune with the attitudes of the time, and indeed, even now, another 30 years on.
Oh, it's still shocking. It's still really uncomfortable to read.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into detail, but the way it's even described, it's not graphic. It's not salacious. He actually, in a few short paragraphs, really captures the brutality of it. And that was the horrifying bit. And yeah, given that this is a book where you have machine gun massacres, where you have baseball bats being used in a way that Ace wouldn't approve of, it's that scene with Ace that's actually the really dark moment.
Mm-hmm. And as you say, it's not what you would have expected from Terrance Dicks, obviously, along with the gun massacres as well.
Yeah. Gun massacres, you would expect it because it's Chicago, it's Al Capone, it's, great detail about the kind of the Tommy gun impacts on the walls and destroying furniture and the attack on the restaurant. At least he goes out of his way to say there were innocent bystanders hurt as well. I was actually quite appreciative of that, because I was worried he was going to make it too Dick Tracy style.
Yeah.
where kind of it's just the bad guys versus the good guys kind of thing. But yeah, you got people, and then there's this wonderful moment which actually I keep meaning to go away and read up on, where Al Capone pays for the damage, where he helps the innocent bystanders. I'm thinking, I never knew that. Is that real? Is that, so
it's a bit Robin Hoodish, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, say Terrance has put a lot of effort into the Chicago stuff. You've got some really far deeper characters than I would have imagined, because, yeah, I mean, my experience of Chicago is Dick Tracy and it's Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Yeah.
Which, let's face it, is probably where most people know, the pretty much everything from. But yeah, I would say it doesn't mention half the kind of, half the violence in there. It doesn't mention that moment with Ace. And I'm just thinking, how much of what I remember isn't what I remember, but it's because I've read these books since then in the subsequent 34 years, where it's not put the stuff in. So my brain has remembered the bits that it's told me to remember, and kind of... So yeah, I'm thinking, right, so there's 61 new adventures, there's, 30-something missing adventures, and you've got the EDAs. Like, okay, how much of the last 35 years have I actually forgotten? Mm-hmm. It's, what else is in there? I mean, Terrance, again, in Exodus, there's a really dark scene where one of the Nazis is instructed to balance a hand grenade on his head and pull the pin. It's like, excuse me. And I think this is, we remember the new adventures as being, oh, they're really filthy, they're really, sexy. It's like, no, they're violent.
That's sadism as well.
It is, it's just awful. And I think, again, one of the great things is, we've now got a new generation of fans who are discovering them through whatever means, They're definitely paying, 90, 100 quid for copies of, Dying Days and So Vilest and Honest. But we've got new fans. And yeah, some of them are putting online comments like, this was Doctor Who in the 90s? Are you serious? There's so much in there. And actually, the Chicago stuff makes the Vampire Planet look tame.
Yes, that's what I was coming to, because, as you said, peasants just wiped out, absolutely brutally, remorselessly gone.
And it's just like, the worst thing is, they're not killed. Theoretically, they're turned into the undead. But, they're peasants, it doesn't matter, we just won't worry about those. It's the same way as Al Capone has people gunned down. Doesn't matter, they get 2 lines of dialogue, then they're put against the wall and shot. And it's just like, oh. And yeah, it's just like, I've blanked out so much of the 90s, clearly.
You had a good 90s then.
No, I had A-levels and a degree. Yeah, it's no fun when you tell your colleagues, oh yes, I didn't even graduate in the same millennium as you.
Yeah, 94 for me.
Yeah, I took a year off, so I graduated in 99. It should have been 98, but yeah, I took a year off.
You child.
Yes, I know.
That's why you like this podcast, because we make you feel younger.
Yes, definitely.
Because we've all got like 3 or 4 years on you here. But yeah. I think I think Terrance really writes well for Benny. I think you can tell that he likes the character and he's enjoying doing it. I think obviously his friendship with Paul Cornell helped to get an insight, but there's something about it. She just feels absolutely right in safe hands.
And there is a wonderful bit where I realised, this is where they got the idea for School Reunion from. The bitch fights between Benny and Romana.
Yes.
This is like the current meeting the ex.
Yep.
I mean, there's wonderful bits where Benny can imagine her kind of like cleaning her face like a cat with a paw. There's just so many wonderful bits. It's like, she's not staying, is she? Yeah. But of course, this then is the return for Romana into our universe.
Yeah, with a few repercussions there for not just the books, but obviously for Big Finish Audios and the whole Gallifrey series to come.
Gordon Bennett. The trouble is, though, because I'm doing a marathon of the main range at the moment, and I've recently done Zagreus and Neverland. And this Romana, returning to Gallifrey, comes back in a totally different way to the Romana of the Big Finish audios. And again, my brain was just going, oh God, please don't do this to me, Terrance. But yeah, it's wonderful to think that actually, Terrance has thought through what happened to Romana afterwards, and you get a lot more insight into why she left. And I was reading it, I'm thinking, yeah, I can believe in Romana's motivations now that they've been explained by Terrance. Again, because it's the era that he was associated with, I can really get behind his description of Romana as she was fed up of being second fiddle. She wanted to strike out on her own, and then she suddenly realised, oh, I've done that now. What do I do next? Oh, I'll just pop back to the previous planet and see how they're getting on. But everyone says, oh, Romana's just the Doctor, but the Doctor never goes back. And so actually this makes Romana into a much stronger character for me, because it's like, yeah, she cares. She's gone back. Mm-hmm. She goes to see how the planet is getting on.
Yeah, she's got that degree of introspection to her. Yeah. Just having that sort of thing. It's not just about what happens next, as you say. It's looking back and just sort of how have things got on, and the fact she physically returns there. And and I do love the return where she meets the Doctor, but we'll hear a bit about that later on. Now, at this point, we usually tend to go into an interview with the author, but of course, sadly, we lost Terrance in 2019. However, thanks to my pal Simon Guerrier, he interviewed Terrance about Blood Harvest for Beneath Summerfield, The Inside Story. And this is what he had to say in that interview with Simon.
The next new adventure you wrote was Blood Harvest, the vampire one. That was the first time you wrote for Paul's character Bernice. What were you given to go on for her? Was she already existing in novels? I was probably given those books to read, and I would have talked to Paul about her, I'm sure. She's reasonably straightforward. There's details of history. She's a slightly fake academic. She hasn't really got the right qualifications, although she pretends she has. She's tough and feisty and likes to drink. It wasn't too difficult to get a handle on her. She was specifically designed for the longer length novels. Did that make it easier to write a longer book because she had a bit more depth to her? Yeah, she had considerable backstory and history. I'm actually quite keen on continuity, so I either looked up or asked Paul or discovered somewhere or other what her past was and tried to use that when I was writing the character. You've been on record saying that before that, bar a few quirks and mannerisms, the Doctor is the Doctor, is the Doctor. The Doctor is the Doctor, yeah. The character doesn't change, the actor changes. You play in a sense to the strengths of the actor. You play to the dignity and suavity and charm of John, or the scattiness, kookiness and wildness of Tom. But the Doctor is still the Doctor. Would you say then, from that what changes the show is who he's travelling with? Well, that's one of the things. One of the things about Who, one of the things that keeps it alive is constant change and variety. Obviously, you get a big change every time you get a new Doctor, but you get a small change every time you get a new companion, which affects the dynamic of the show. Paul again worked elements of Blood Harvest into the book he was writing at the time, Goth Opera. Was that the same thing, of him asking you for an element he could put in? That's right. He wanted one of my vampires to escape and get away so he could have him in his story. In fact, what happened is that the vampire hides himself in Bernice's box of archaeological samples. At the very end of the story, in the course of a rather drunken party, Bernice decides that she wants to go look at her archaeological samples, opens it, and a vampire leaps out and disappears out of the window. I've always liked this because it's got a nice time travel twist. She goes to the Doctor and says, "Good grief, look what's happened. The vampire is on the loose. and he says, "Don't worry, my dear, I dealt with it long ago." That's always conjured up for me the paradox of time travel. Both Exodus and Blood Harvest build on elements from your previous TV Doctor Who stories. How much was that a part of the brief you were given by Darvel Evans? No, I think it's much more just a thing that I do. I've always said that if you can't plagiarise yourself, who can you plagiarise? I've also always felt that if you get a good idea, a good character, a good setting, why waste it? In my none-who writing career, which nobody ever wants to know anything about, I've always thought in series. If I got a good character, I would do a series of 4 or 5 books about them. There is such a rich history and backstory in Who that it's really nice to be able to use that, to go back into it. It's your investment. Yeah, I think it gives it a kind of depth and colour that you're not starting from scratch every time. You're writing as part of a very rich and dense tradition. So you weren't asked to bring things back specifically, like Romana? No, I do it anyway.
And thanks very much to Nev Fountain for that reading. And now we'll have a second one, also from Nev, from the pages of Doctor Who magazine. And this appeared in DWM 275.
Virgin contacted Terrance about a second book a year and a half later. The result was Blood Harvest, which featured a return to the planet of the vampires, which Terrance had established in the television story State of Decay. I've been accused of too often revisiting old patches, he says, but it's something I like to do. I brought back the Warlords, Kriegsleiter and his mob, to flesh out the rest of the Exodus. Again, it might be laziness, but if you've created some good characters and a good environment, you want to use them again. Why go to all the agony of thinking up something new? I have an affection for the vampire planet, so I wanted to return and see how the characters were getting on. You can add to the scenario and fill in details. I also wanted to bring back Romana. She had floated off in this rather weird way to help the Tharals at the end of Warrior's Gate. I always felt that the departure of companions after my time was not handled all that well, Romana being a case in point, so I wanted to look at how she got on. She was such a nice contrast with Bernice Summerfield. One's rather loose and gawky and stroppy, and the other's extremely neat and precise. The novel's other strand sees the Doctor and Ace holed up in 1930s Chicago, allowing Terrance to indulge another of his interests. I love gangsters. There's a very good book by Kenneth Alsop called The Bootleggers, about the Chicago gang wars of the 20s and 30s. It's very much like medieval Italy, with lots of little barons having wars with each other. I've always loved Raymond Chandler and that kind of noir writer, so to be able to pay homage to them with shootouts and speakeasies and so on was great fun. You see, I always try to write the kind of book I like to read, which is action-adventure with some humour. I write all my books for me, in a sense. Time goes by, and it can sometimes be up to 6 months before you get your free copies. When I get mine, I always sit down and read my books. I've probably done 2 or more in the interim, and the acid test is whether I enjoy them. I have to admit I always do.
So thank you for that. So interesting that something you mentioned there, Terrance actually discussed there in terms of a sequel.
It would have worked really well. I think it's needed. The first half, because we're nearly halfway through the Virgin New Adventures. The first half is really Gallifrey heavy, and then it kind of drops out until you get to Lungbarrow, which is not just Gallifrey heavy, it's kind of Gallifrey and possibly dense. And I think, yeah, he so obviously has plans for these 3 characters. The way that they kind of slink off at the end, they're not blown up, they're not exposed to sunlight, they're not stabbed, they just kind of sneak off screen. And yeah, I want to know what happens next, and of course, sadly, as you say, not going to happen.
Yeah, I like the fact that Terrance mentions that we mentioned there about Benny, the fact that a vampire hides in Benny's box of samples and such like that, and the end. And yeah, I like that. It feels absolutely right, doesn't it? Sort of. And
it's lovely to actually see Benny doing archaeology.
Yes.
I think one of the things we kind of forget these days, because it's maybe not such a focus of the Big Finish anymore, is that she was an archaeologist. And there is, I have to say, one of the best insights into Benny's attitude to herself in the lie detector scene. That was brilliant.
Since you've mentioned that lie detector scene, James, let's hear your reading from it.
Now you know all our secrets, my lady, said Kalmar. It is time for you to tell us yours. He smiled benignly at her. I must tell you that unless we are satisfied with your answers, you will not leave this place alive. The threat was so unexpected that at first Bernice didn't take it in. But as she looked into Kalmar's faded old eyes, she realized that he meant what he had said. In his own quiet way, he was as much of a fanatic as Tarak. Bernice managed to smile. My secrets are soon told, Kalmar held up his hand. One moment, my lady. He raised his voice. Bring out the truth machine. A couple of the men jumped up and went over to the other side of the dome. They returned trundling a wheeled trolley on which stood a simple machine. It consisted of a metal cabinet with a vision screen set into the top. Beneath the screen there were two heavy metal handholds. There was a row of controls on the front of the machine. One of the men uncoiled a heavy cable and plugged the machine into a power point in the wall of the dome. Kalmar fiddled with the controls and the screen lit up. Black dots moved across the middle of the screen in an endless line. There, he said happily. We are ready, my lady. Bernice regarded the machine suspiciously. What is that thing? A truth machine, my lady. In the time when the tower was a spaceship, it was used to interrogate prisoners. I found it and got it working again. This seems a splendid opportunity to test the device. If you will kindly clasp the handholds. I'm not going anywhere near that thing. Tarak pushed his way forward. There's nothing to be afraid of, my lady. He grabbed the handholds. Show her, Kalmar. Kalmar adjusted controls. What is your name? I am Tarak, son of Tarak. The dots continued their steady progress across the screen. Tarak stepped back. You see? How does it work? The machine measures pulse, body temperature, muscle tension, perspiration, said Kalmar. As long as you tell the truth, or what you believe to be the truth, there is nothing to fear. My lady? The circle of men around Bernice drew a little closer. She still didn't like it, but there didn't seem to be any way out. Maybe she could bluff the machine. It all depended what they asked her. Reluctantly, she stepped forward and gripped the handholds. Kalmar touched another control, and twin clamps slid out of the body of the machine, fixing her hands in place. Alarmed, Bernice tried to pull free, but she was held fast. Hey, what is this? Let me loose. Shall we begin, my lady? Said Kalmar. What is your name? Bernice Summerfield. The dots chugged steadily across the screen. Where do you come from? From another planet. From many other planets. I'm a space traveller. And that's true enough, thought Bernice. So far, so good. Why are you here? I was brought here. Kalmar gave her an impatient look. Why did you come to this planet? I'm an archaeologist. The machine gave a faint ping, and the line of dots juddered a little. Bernice felt a faint tingling sensation. Tarak leaned forward. What does that mean? Is she lying? Kalmar frowned, studying the screen. Not exactly, but there seems to be some element of doubt involved. Bernice bit her lip in anger. Somehow, this blasted machine had picked up the trace of self-doubt that never left her. "Are you an archaeologist?" asked Kalmar. "Yes, of course I am," shouted Bernice. "I'm a professor of archaeology." The machine gave a sharp, angry ping, the line of dots suddenly peaked, and a jolt of electricity shot through Bernice's body. She gave a yell of pain and rage. "If you lie, the machine delivers a shock," explained Kalmar. Bernice felt a wave of humiliation sweep over her. She had lived with that particular lie for so long, it had become a kind truth for her. But her body knew it was a lie. Her body knew that she had been expelled from school without any proper qualifications. That professor was a mockingly affectionate title bestowed by the kids she'd helped when she was hiding out in the woods. Her body knew it, and it had betrayed her to the machine. "Are you an archaeologist or not?" asked Tarak. Bernice thought for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "I am a student of archaeology with a great deal of field experience. I have led expeditions on a number of different planets." Tarak looked at Kalmar, who looked at the screen and nodded. "She's telling the truth." "All right," said Tarak. "It seems you are an archaeologist of some sort. Now, why did you come to this planet, Professor?" "To study your history, with a view to mounting a full expedition." Another ping from the machine. Another savage jolt of pain. Bernice gasped and slumped forward over the machine. "Every time you lie, the shock becomes stronger," said Tarak. "If you keep on lying, the machine will eventually kill you." He grabbed Bernice by the hair and pulled her upright. "Now, why did you come to this planet? Who are you working for?" Bernice clenched her teeth and glared hatred at him without speaking. A third jolt of electricity, the worst yet, convulsed her body. "The machine punishes silence as well as lies," said Tarak. "Well, why did you come here?" "All right, damn you, I'll tell you," shouted Bernice. "The doctor sent me here." Kalmar stared unbelievingly at the screen. "She speaks the truth. You fool, Tarak. She comes from the doctor and you nearly killed her." With a sudden heave, Bernice shoved the machine forward, knocking it clean off the trolley. It crashed to the ground amidst a shower of sparks, and the clamps came free from her wrists. Springing to her feet, Bernice launched herself across the shattered machine straight at Tarak. She bore him to the ground and sat on his chest, beating his head on the ground. She was banging happily away and resisting attempts to pull her off when a cool voice said, "May I inquire what's going on?" Disentangling herself, Bernice got to her feet. Striding towards her from the doorway was a small, neat woman with a high forehead and long, fair hair. It was the horsey woman, the one who had warned her off at the burial ground. In the same cool tone, the newcomer went on, "Did I hear you mention the doctor just now?" "That's right. Do you know him?" "We used to be very good friends once upon a time. I'm the Lady Romana Dravat Prelunda, by the way. You can call me Romana." "I'm Bernice Summerfield," said Bernice. She looked at the dazed and battered Tarak, who had just struggled to his feet. Bernice knocked him down again. "Professor Bernice Summerfield. You can call me Benny." They shook hands.
So why does this work for you?
Terrance is the master of condensing real emotion, real character development into very short bits of dialogue and very short bits of scene. You know, other authors probably would have then gone off on a 3 or 4 page flashback kind of thing. Yeah. But no, he does it through the lie detector. He does it really efficiently, but he does it really well. And I think a testament as you say, to the character of Benny, to Paul Cornell's creation, to Terrance's ability to write for her, I could hear Lisa Berman reading the lines. The pacing was there, the sarcasm was there, everything was there. Other books, again, it's not quite so easy to hear the modern Benny voicing them, but this was perfect. This was absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
And yeah, her scenes, and again, not just a passing mention to her being an archaeologist, but her doing a proper archaeological digging up the bones, criticising people for raiding inappropriately, for disturbing the site. It's just beautiful, the insight we get into Benny's life and Benny's way of seeing things. And of course, being Terrance, he makes it vital to the plot. Again, it's not just a throwaway thing. This is a very efficient book, and I say that as a great tribute. This is glowing, because you're reading it and it's like, yeah, everything is telling you about the attitudes of Chicago or the Vampire Planet. It's telling you about the characters. It's telling you what you need for the plot. There's one of Decker's lines where he's been away from the Doctor for a while, and he's been off on a missing girls case. And he says, the beautiful ones fall in with the wrong crowd, the ugly ones don't get a chance to. And it's like, in that one short bit, it's like, yeah, that you can see that in the kind of the flapper girls in Chicago in the 30s and everything. It's like, yeah, he summed up the whole of Chicago's attitude towards females in that one sentence, and it is brilliant.
Yeah.
I loved it.
His insight. I mean, that's a man who's obviously got a lot of life experience and met a lot of interesting characters.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's able to put something, sum up a decade's attitudes in just, as you say, one sentence, in the way that people react, how they are, who they are, and it's all done so well. I think that's one of the great things about Terrance, is just that he was always good, so good in character. He does
definitely
world building with a deft stroke of the pen.
And he actually includes a truly heartbreaking scene for me. When there is the gun massacre, when the mobsters are lined up against the wall, shot down or whatever, he makes the guy's dog watch the massacre. And I'm just sitting there going, that's evil. You have just shown how brilliantly evil, but you've also shown how there's the relationship between the monster and his pet. And then you start thinking, well, actually kind of like, yeah, if the dog is looking so absolutely aghast, it's just like, yeah, that tells you about the relationship they had. And it's like, oh, don't do this to me. Don't kill off a dozen people, but make me feel sorry for the dog.
And that is a masterstroke. That is somebody who understands people, and just how difficult things can be, and what bastards people can be, quite frankly.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, again, Al Capone seems to be schizophrenic. He's got I'll pay for the innocent bystanders, I'll smash these guys' heads in with a baseball bat. And it's just like, oh. Again, you think it's like, yeah, you don't associate Terrance Dicks with these acts of really nasty violence. But then you read his books and you realise actually there's quite a lot in there,
Terrance Unbound, Unleashed. It'd be fascinating to see him have done a proper original adult novel.
I was about to say, I would love to know what he would have put in it, because having revisited Blood Harvest, I cannot grasp where he would have taken it, what he would have done with it. I think it would have got quite dark. I think
he'd probably have had the dog would have then had to eat its owner's remains or something like that.
Oh, just had lunch.
I could see. Oh, sorry. But it's that kind of, just sort of just pushing it, that you've got to that level, but that's just really pushing it overboard.
Yeah.
And going next level grisly. And but the thing is, I'm sure that that kind of thing would have gone on.
Oh, definitely. Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you consider their attitudes to kind of, health and safety with bootleg liquor, I don't expect the kind of the attitude to health and safety of where the bar snacks came from was particularly high on their list of priorities.
Yeah. Were those really pork scratchings?
Yeah. I'm now hearing Decker going, these porks, they're the mutt's nuts. I'm just...
Yeah. Too far, James. Too far.
Well, Decker, he comes back,
Yes.
Twice more.
Mm-hmm. He's a good character.
And again, it's just left me, so I partially want to rewatch State of Decay, just to find out what the original continuity was before Terrance rewrites it. But yeah, I need to go away and reread its Players, isn't it?
Yes.
Because I had forgotten that he's in Players. And I'm thinking, I've just spent 90,000 words with this guy, who is Ace's ex now. And it's just like, where does he end up? How does he, because he ends up in England, doesn't he?
He does indeed, and in the time of Churchill, and yes, there's and Sixth Doctor, and lots of adventures going. So, but that's another story for another day.
Oh yes, let's not spoil that one.
Let's have a reading before we get to the final act, as the Doctor and Romana meet once again.
The three vampires glided after Romana and Bernice with incredible speed. By the time the two women reached the bottom of the stairs, their ghastly pursuers were close behind them. The Doctor heard Ace coming down the steps. "Don't shoot," he called. "Energy weapons don't work. It's up to you, Mr. Decker. In the heart, remember. It must be in the heart." "Okay, Doc." Decker raised his .45, the heavy automatic steady in his big hand. "Get down, ladies." As Romana and Bernice flung themselves down at the foot of the steps, Zargo sprang. Decker fired twice, and Zargo was slammed back, a red stain spreading on the breast of his robe. Orkon attacked next. The gun roared twice in quick succession, and Orkon fell, his white robe flooded with red. Camilla sprang, and just for a moment Decker hesitated. In that moment Camilla was upon him, white arms clasping him with incredible strength, long fangs lunging for his throat. "Shoot, Decker!" shouted Ace. "She's not human!" With a mighty effort, Decker flung the vampire away from him, and as she sprang back to the attack he fired twice. The impact flung the vampire across the laboratory, and she crumpled and fell in a bloody heap. Some people say the old 1911 model, Army Colt Automatic, is big and clumsy and noisy. Maybe it is. But hit them in the heart with 2 slugs from a .45, and they go down and stay down, even if they're vampires. All this happened so quickly that Agonal had no time to react. The Doctor stepped forward, quickly, tossing the glowing crystal sphere in the air. "Agonal, look!" Agonal's eyes fastened on the sphere, and he froze. The Doctor tossed the sphere up and down, up and down. Agonal began taking slow steps towards him, drawn by a force he could not resist. Then something extraordinary happened. A pyramid of blackness appeared in the laboratory, spinning over and over. It engulfed Agonal and whisked him away. For a moment, the Doctor stood there, amazed and enraged. "Time scooped," he yelled, "of all the interfering." With an effort, he dragged his mind back to present problems. He whirled round. "Ace, get everyone out of here. Those guards as well. Tell Ivo to get everyone else out he can find, friend or foe. You've got about 5 minutes." "What are you going to do?" "Turn up the pressure cooker. Move!" No situation, however urgent, could override Romana's aristocratic politeness. She paused at the bottom of the steps, looking at the odd-looking little man who had turned up to save her. "I really must thank—" Her eyes widened. "Doctor?" Briefly, the Doctor smiled. "Later, Romana. Now go!" Romana turned to Decker, who was holding onto the rail of the metal steps. "I must thank you too." "My pleasure, lady," said Decker, and slid gently to the ground. Only then did they see the handle of Camilla's little silver dagger projecting from his left side. The Doctor took in the situation in one quick glance and gave a stream of orders. "Don't touch the dagger. Find a stretcher. Get him back to the TARDIS. Everyone out, now!" Ace took charge. "Hello, Benny." She kicked the stunned guards into consciousness. "You lot, move! Help me get him up the steps." Romana and Bernice hurried away while Ace chivied the dazed guards into carrying Decker's body up the metal staircase. The doctor hurried over to the bank of controls. Their function was quite familiar to him. He'd done some work in this field himself a long time ago. This was Time Lord technology. It didn't take the doctor long to achieve the results he wanted. It was basically a matter of turning everything up to a maximum. As the control room started to shudder and throb, he turned to look at the thing in the tank. It was stirring, flexing its great leathery wings. The green eyes opened and glared at him with an unutterable malevolence. "Nice to meet you too," said the doctor. He turned and ran swiftly up the metal steps. It was almost dawn when the doctor came out of the castle. At the foot of the hill he found Ace, Bernice, Romana and Ivo, and a mixed band of guerrillas and guards. The 4 castle guard prisoners were holding a rough stretcher on which lay Decker's body. Ace had pulled open his shirt and was clamping a flat metal disc onto his chest close to the wound. Decker's body arched for a moment and then slumped back, motionless. A thin rime of frost began spreading over his face. "Field cryogenics," said Ace, in answer to Bernice's inquiring look. "He's in stasis now. He'll stay like this, no better no worse, till we can get him proper medical attention." "We'll get him the best, Ace," said the doctor. "He won't die," said Ace fiercely. "I won't let him." "Look!" shouted Ivo. "The castle!" The castle was shaking itself apart. A spiderweb network of splits appeared across the main facade. Turrets crumbled and fell, their masonry crashing into the courtyard.
That reunion, it's not the one you'd expect. Just
No.
sort of just oh, blah, 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 blah. Oh, hello, it's you. And then just carries on, and very little sort of, how are you? It's just, there's so much going on.
And there's this one, it's just like, "Doctor? Oh, okay, carry on." Yeah, it's just like that split second of realisation, and then suddenly the last however many years haven't happened. You know,
Yeah.
they just carry on as they were. And the bit that kind of, again, I thought was well done was when they're in the TARDIS and they're sharing the telepathic conference. You almost, because say in 3 Doctors and stuff, you know, you've got the contact bit, but here I just felt as though there was kind of, you know, because they were sharing far more than just literally the Chicago and the East Space, they were sharing everything. It was just like, yeah, the Doctor still has a soft spot for Romana. He's still very, very keen to find out how she's been doing. And yeah, if it was so easy to go back to East Space, why didn't he go back and check up on her?
Exactly. Should have been fascinating foil alongside Colin. Well, as we hear in Apocalypse Element, how well they work together.
Oh, Romana is going to work with every Doctor. I mean, she's great with Paul McGann in Sharda. She's great with Colin in Apocalypse Element.
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't get too much with Seventh in this one, but of course, you know, we've got Gallifrey ahead in Lungbarrow, and then, as you say, in all the Gallifrey series and everything. She's a wonderful creation. I do feel sorry for, is it Tomb of Valdemar?
Yes, yes, indeed. Which, funnily enough, James, when you mentioned that, look, I just finished reading the reprint of it.
Oh, from the Tom Baker box thing.
Yeah, with that weird Invasion of Time
cover,
type,
yeah, because
coggy cover.
Because that was the first one to give us a third Romana, you know, which of course then Big Finish go ahead and do as well. It's just like Romana, she's got it. I mean, because in Gallifrey they go to the Axis from Axis to Santi. I'm just thinking, how many Romanas are there? How many paths does she take? It's just like, because of course you've got Lalla and John Leeson in the 2 BBV ones as well.
Yep.
Mentioned the Pocket Universe. It's like, obviously a companion that everyone is still so much in love with, but Terrance bringing her back is the right one.
Yep. And interesting to note, in an interview, he said that it was his decision to do it as well.
Yeah.
Which was, I'd completely forgotten that I'd read that years ago, and it's like new fact, because it's something you'd imagine that it could be setting up a whole load of new stuff, but ultimately it's not really.
I know.
At this point anyway.
I think because you've got Ace's permanent departure, as it were, coming up in a few books' time. And I think that once you get Chris and Roz, they've just decided, we've got to move on. We've got to move away from Gallifrey. But Blood Harvest, Act 3, which actually is a whole act.
But in about 30 pages.
I was reading it and I'm thinking, I've got hardly anything left. When are we going to get to Gallifrey? And the page count is going down and down and down. Mm-hmm. And this is where an awkward bit of the book comes in. Because I was chatting with some friends, and one of my friends said, they would much rather have the audiobook of Blood Harvest than read it, because littered throughout it, you've got these 3 weird characters who are watching things on the time scoop and everything. But you don't know really their genders, you don't know anything about their voices, you know nothing about it. And of course, who they are is revealed later on in the book. But it's really difficult, I think, when you've got such anonymous characters to kind of really be able to kind of like visualize what's going on. And because one thing we haven't mentioned yet, this book is a mix of first and third person. You've got Decker's wonderful descriptions of everything going on. And I've got a genuine question for you. And this has fascinated me for a while since I discovered it. Mm-hmm. When you are reading a book, do you physically hear the words inside your head?
Yes, I do.
And
definitely, because I find that way I take them in more. Whereas if I'm skim reading it, it doesn't absorb. Whereas if I actually read it properly and then hear the words, then yes, I take it in.
Because not everyone hears the words. And the friend of mine who said, they prefer audiobooks to physical books, does not have that inner voice. So when I'm reading Blood Harvest, and it's one of Decker's first person bits, I hear it in the Chicago accent. I hear it with the pauses and the rhythms and everything. Whereas my friend just, they take the information in, but they don't hear the voice. And apparently only about 1 in 3 people hear the voices.
Wow.
Yeah. I only learned this in the last year. Not everyone actually hears what they are reading. And that is why, I say, those bits at the start with the 3 doing the chant and everything actually put my friend off the book. Because there was so little descriptive stuff for them to get a hook on. Whereas when I just have allocated 3 different voices, a high, a medium and a low, just so that I can kind of differentiate them. But at least then it gives me continuity when I'm reading it through the book. But apparently not everyone literally hears the words in their head as they're reading.
That's fascinating. I had no idea. Can tell you do an awful lot of audiobooks for pleasure. With that. But I had no idea that. I think it's an interesting one. Really interesting.
And of course, when they're revealed at the end, and they're revealed as being 3 complete non-entities, even by Gallifreyan standards, it's just like, oh, you built these 3 up. But again, Terrance even takes a moment to actually joke about these 3 characters. Because each of their things ends with Rassilon must die, Barusa must live, the Doctor must die. And then half or 2/3 of the way through, one of the characters says, can we just skip the chant this week and go? It's just like, it's getting a bit boring. It's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's like Terrance is almost like a knowing wink to the audience with that, because knowing they'll be thinking, here we go again, it's that lot.
And it's brilliant. It was just that moment where I actually think, oh, these are real people. They're not just kind of ciphers. These are real people who have thoughts, who want to get back and go to bed kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, just moments like that make up for the darker moments, shall we say.
Yeah, definitely. But of course, the whole ending is where it becomes really, really, to use that 90s term, fan-wanky. Because we've got the sequel to The 5 Doctors, we've got the return of Barusa, we've got the return of Rassilon, we've got Barusa being freed but then being exiled. And
I know.
Yeah. In fact, let's just pause for a blast of Rassilon's horn. Hope you enjoyed that moment. I know I did.
Oh, I'm going to go and buy a cream horn after this to make up for it. Yeah. It is challenging. I've said many times throughout this that, Gallifrey was a big part of the first half of the New Adventures. Gallifrey becomes a big part of Big Finish. Gallifrey was rightly destroyed in the Eighth Doctor Adventures. I think we'd had enough of it. But yeah, it's Gallifrey on steroids, and then he brings it all back in the Eight Doctors as well, but totally differently. Right, I've got a request. Okay, in the end, of course, because this leads into Goth Opera.
Yeah,
you've got the two crossover scenes. You've got the Benny releasing Yavin from her archaeology box, but you've got Ruath meeting Romana, which is again
or Ruatha in this case.
Ruath, yeah, which is then expanded upon in Goth Opera. Right. Do you have your Blood Harvest book to hand?
I have my PDF version of it,
fine.
which I will just summon it up. Doctor Stuff, Doctor Books, New Adventures, number 28. I do have my Blood Harvest open now.
Okay, so if you skip to the end where that scene where Uratha meets Romana, could you read me, please, Ruath's full name?
Hang on, I'll try this. This is not being edited. Ruatha Dvorfrenatlid. Pronounced. I'll try again. Runatha Dvorfrenatlid.
No, there's no end at the start. Right. This is pure Time Lord wank.
Yes.
It's just, why do they have... It started with Mark Platt in Time's Crucible, and it's just become this running joke that everyone has really complicated names. And I'm just thinking, why? Because no one else in the whole of all the other Gallifrey stuff introduces themselves with their full name and then gives a shortened version. Why did he have to put that in there? And I noticed in the Big Finish version of Goth Opera, the dialogue is different, because in the book, when she emerges from the TARDIS at the start, she gives her full name and says, "But you can call me Ruath." You didn't make the actress say the full name. I was so... It's like, I want to hear how they pronounce it. Please tell me how to pronounce it.
I don't know the actress, so I can't text her and say, "Will you just say this for James?"
No. But say it's one of these irritating things that, again, Gallifrey has become this bizarre place with the ridiculously complicated names, except for Barusa, except for Rassilon, except for
Rassilona Travondium the Benedict III.
Yeah. Rassilon and on.
I like that.
And why Terrance put it in, I don't know, because I mean, it's used twice in Goth Opera. Once in the recap of the scene from Blood Harvest, and once at the start when she emerges. No other Time Lord does that.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah. And as you say, we've got Rassilon, we've got Barusa, we've got the tomb, we've got transmats at hidden rooms, and it's like, did he not complete his quota by the time he got there, and he suddenly thought, I've got 30 pages, I need to get all this in there.
I've got Spandrel. I've got, it just starts to, it just really, it grates slightly by this point. And I don't like saying that, but it does grate.
It does. I agree with you totally. It should have had a different ending.
There should have been another way.
I was trying not to say that one. We're in a bit where we're criticising fan wank, and I was trying not to quote the show. But yeah, there should have been more. I mean, I'd say if the Council of Three had turned up in Goth Opera, or if they'd turned up in another book, I think it would have been excusable.
Yeah.
But yeah, they turn up, Barusa isn't the person they wanted him to be, and then between them, Barusa, Rassilon, and the Doctor give them a headache.
Yeah, it's clunky and just sort of Rassilon very quickly sort of dismisses Agonal and wipes him out and sorts him and just really it's done deftly but not in a good way. It's almost like brushed over. Oh no, I'm running out of words. Right, okay, right. Rassilon powers, zap.
And again, I do wonder if in his original thoughts it went on a bit longer. So I'm wondering, if he was then asked to bleed it into goth opera, whether or not he had to squish it down to put in the extra bits about Benny's archaeology crate and Yavin and everything. So I do wonder if there was an edit there that wasn't in the original version.
Yeah, is there a director, or not quite a director's cut, but an author's cut with a slightly different ending?
Yeah.
Hey, who knows? Maybe Simon Guerrier will turn it up when he's doing his researches. So we shall find out next year, hopefully.
Oh, brilliant.
I think that's in the books, but I know that as we speak, Simon interviewed somebody today. He just told me it wasn't. Like, oh, it sounds exciting. So,
excellent.
But yes, but I mean, all in all, it's
brilliant.
It's disappointing that it's not. I think the ending's disappointing, but all in all, it doesn't really take the shine off the rest of it because it is enjoyable. It is. I mean, the word romp is often used for some Doctor Who stories, and this is a romp. It's got great characters, great settings that are perfectly brought to life in terms of Chicago. We're getting Return to the Vampire Planet, which we can picture really well. We know what Gallifrey looks like in the Five Doctors, so these settings are all alive. The characters are good. Maybe just the denouement's a slight disappointment, but generally for me, it's a damn good read.
Oh, it's brilliant. And if someone is looking for an in, if they want something that's kind of like a fun book with a few dark moments, but will then give them things to go off and read about, Blood Harvest is superb.
Yes. If you want a good entertaining book, you know about, I mean, something we were saying earlier, in terms of new and old readers alike, this is an interesting one.
Yes.
If you want to elucidate on that, my reasoning that it's plenty there familiar to people who know the show. If you know your State of Decay, your Five Doctors, plenty to pick up on.
It's a great look. If you're a big Finnish person, it's a great look at an alternate backstory for Romana. I think it's a very good expansion of the character. So again, it kind of gives you, if you're not hugely familiar with season 17 and 18, it's going to give you a great introduction to this haughty, aristocratic, but really good-spirited character. It's going to introduce you to Benny if you're not a Benny person. It's just everything is there to draw you in and to give you so much more to investigate. I mean, again, not an official sequel, but Terrance would revisit the private investigator thing in Mean Streets. So again, I mean, there's so much more that you can kind of like expand on from this. You've got players, you've got doctors, you've got Mean Streets, you've then got huge amounts of Benny, you've got loads of stuff about kind of, if you've only seen Ace on the TV and suddenly this is war-torn Ace, the War Ace, oh god, there's another 20 boxes. There's so much to read. This is a great one for new people to dive into and then spiral out from. It really is. I'm recommending it to a few of my friends to read, so yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
And of course, the very last line, asterisk, a reference to the events in Goth Opera, a companion novel to this one. It's a shame it's not quite Doctor Who and the Goth Opera, but it's almost there.
Yeah. Again, it would have been nice if the Doctor had kind of twigged that Yavin was someone who he'd spent a very long time fighting, with Nyssa being a vampire and everything. It seems a little unlikely he would have completely forgotten. But nah. He needed a standalone. If you need a standalone book, you don't need Goth Opera. Goth Opera continues the story rather than is a necessity.
Yeah. And, you can always go and listen to it if you can't be bothered reading the book, or if you can't find the book. So
available
it
from
fits perfectly.
available from all good Big Finish links on the Big Finish website.
www.bigfinish.com.
Yes, we love stories.
Yes, we do. For the love of stories.
I can't remember what the current one is.
It's, in fact, if you want to know what it is, go and listen to it, people.
Go and buy it. It's a really good one, actually.
We're not telling you. We're not ruining the surprise. Go and listen to it.
It's a damn good adaptation. It really is.
It is. Great work between Paul and Liz.
It's probably my favourite of all the adaptions.
Interesting.
Which is impressive because it beats Cold Fusion, which was my previous favourite one.
I do like Cold Fusion. But, well, there we go. That's our thoughts on it.
Yep.
Right, let's jump back to the pages of Doctor Who magazine in issue 215, where Craig Hinton was the reviewer of Blood Harvest. Vampires, 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 and the launch of a new series of novels from Virgin. So, armed with garlic, we send Craig Hinton off to brave the night, is how it's introduced. And it tells us Chicago, the 30s prohibition. Whilst it is illegal to produce or sell alcohol, those that decide to break the law with their illicit stills and speakeasies find it a most profitable business. And one of the most recent and most popular bars is Doc's Place, run by the mysterious Doctor and his sidekick, the sharpshooting Ace. Meanwhile, in the exospace time continuum, Benny is carrying out a little archaeological research on the planet of the vampires from State of Decay. Research which leads her to the abandoned castle-cum-starship Hydrax, from which the three who rule once terrified the population. Unfortunately for Benny, it seems as if the Doctor's earlier actions were less successful than he might have thought. Once more, the undead stalk the night, and Benny is in danger of becoming one of the first victims. What is the connection between the great vampires and a potential bloodbath in Chicago? What role does Gallifrey play? And why is the Doctor brewing beer in the TARDIS swimming pool? For the answers, read July's new adventure from Virgin, Blood Harvest by Terrance Dicks. When Terrance isn't under the pressure of producing a novelisation each month, the resultant book is inevitably outstanding, and Blood Harvest is no exception. We really are in the hands of the master, with a lowercase m. His characterisation is first-rate. The regulars are drawn to perfection, particularly Benny, whose escapades on the vampire planet feature some of the most chilling scenes in any new adventure. And there's an addition to the roll call of companions, as a familiar face temporarily joins the fray. But I'm not telling! As one would expect, the Doctor is in sparkling form, with all the wit and deeper passions that characterise McCoy's portrayal. And Ace actually gets to play a pivotal role, for the first time since Tragedy Day. The inhabitants of the vampire planet come across just as they did in State of Decay, but the real honours must go to the richly drawn cast in Chicago. From the Marlowe-like Decker, whose scenes are written in the first person in an engaging Chandler-esque style, to the host of gangsters such as Al Capone, everyone leaps off the page. Indeed, it is hard to tell where the true history ends and Terrance's imagination takes over. To cap it all, there is a spectacularly evil villain for the Doctor to get his teeth into, so to speak. The plot is complex, weaving in three connected strands: Vampire Planet, Chicago and Gallifrey. But Terrance's steady pace and sheer enthusiasm carry everything along before reaching the climax. And then the whole thing falls apart. I can't recall ever having been so disappointed by the resolution of a new adventure. As soon as the action moves to Gallifrey, the reader is overwhelmed by a tidal wave of continuity references. Now, I love continuity, but constant references to the scenes of The Deadly Assassin, The Five Doctors, The Elixir of Life, guest appearances by Castellan Spandrel, President Flavia, all a bit much, I'm afraid. Having been waiting for a Gallifrey book since the beginning of the New Adventures, Time's Crucible notwithstanding, I couldn't help thinking that shoehorning it into the end of Blood Harvest was a waste. Thankfully, my overall impression was of an exciting, compelling book, and my disappointment with the ending was outweighed by the quality of what came before, and, as I put it down, I couldn't help but wondering about some of the loose ends. I wanted to find out more about the great vampires and their connection with the Time Lords. And I didn't have long to wait, and then he went on to review Goth Opera. So, I would say that's a pretty fair review from Craig.
I think that's certainly on the nose. I mean, other reviewers that have been mentioned in previous podcasts might have shown a bit more viciousness about the climax, but I think Craig got it spot on.
Yep, I think you're referring to Ness. I mean, these days, but you can't beat the bishop too much when it comes to reviews.
David Steele is going to kill you.
Sorry, Dave. But I think that's very fair. And if you've got your copy of I Who there, do you want to tell us what they had to say at the end of the day?
The wild and woolly Chicago gangster drama makes a mob family of the Doctor, Ace, and Decker, as the Doctor plays the city's gangsters, Capone included, like a fine-tuned piano. The vampire drama pales at first, but builds to horrific slaughter in the woods as Benny and Romana kick undead ass. Unfortunately, the Chicago and E-Space plots are joined not by CVEs, but by the thinnest of plot devices. Agonal gets a huge wind-up, but lasts nearly a page before Rassilon squishes him like a centipede, making the Gallifrey stuff anticlimactic and sometimes damn silly. That Blood Harvest succeeds despite these flaws is a tribute to Terrance Dicks' ingenuity.
Pretty fair again, I would say.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to be. We all seem to be on the same hymn sheet here as we look at it. Of course, we are looking at it with our eyes from then and now. And shall we have a look and see what readers in the 21st century think?
Right.
Shall we turn to Goodreads and see what everyone has to say? Because on there, this book has a rating of 3.61 out of 5, 325 ratings and 47 reviews. In terms of 5-star reviews, 20%, 4-star, 33%, 3 stars, 33% again, 2 stars, 10%, and 1 star, 1%. That's 6 people give this a 1-star review. How mean and rubbish are they?
I wonder if they've even read it.
I bet they haven't.
I mean,
they're probably Star Trek fans, or they're probably, the word I can hardly bring myself, Hoovians.
Yes, the ones who hoover. Right, okay.
Yes. So, would you like to give us a review there that you've got to hand?
Okay, so 5 stars from Chris. I shouldn't like this book as much as I do. It is Terrance Dicks riding roughshod over his own continuity, even in the same book, to write a sequel to State of Decay, along with his own version of The Untouchables. Also, some parts are ridiculous attempts to be edgy, like a chapter where Ace is drugged and sold to a brothel, and the Doctor has to go in with a shotgun to rescue her. And yet it is so enjoyable. Far from the absurd continuity fests of 8 Doctors and its ilk, this has a great turn of phrase and is still fun to read even in the midst of people being murdered by vampires or gunned down on the streets of Chicago. I think this is because both the characters are often larger than life, Decker's ridiculous PI shtick makes for great narration, and Dicks is often willing to make great fun of himself in the text. Great fun.
Yep, that's obviously a reference to the wheezing and groaning sound. What kind of Egypt would make up that description?
Oh, so many lovely touches, yeah.
Yeah, a little nod there. I've got a 4-star review here from The Bookseller. The Bookseller said, really enjoyed this one. Terrance Dicks is a master at writing really engaging stories and dialogue. You can imagine my surprise when starting this book, with its gothic science fiction book cover, that the story opened in Al Capone-style Chicago. Surprisingly, didn't struggle with the State of Decay sequel parts, an episode I've not seen. However, we probably did not need the final location at the end.
Yeah, I think it's fair enough. They could have dealt with Agonal on the E-Space planet. You know?
Yeah.
That'd be much better. Right, so we've got another 4-star one from David Layton. 4 stars, I think a man of taste. Right. Terrance Dicks is a much beloved figure in Whoviana. Do you like that word?
No.
And deservedly so. His opinions about all things Who are always worth hearing. His own original contributions, however, have been up and down affairs. State of Decay had clever dialogue, but too many vampire cliches and a preposterous denouement. This sequel is far superior in every way to the original. The vampires are scarier, the action more believable, and the dialogue equally crisp. This novel shows what is possible with Doctor Who in its new forms.
Absolutely. I think that's bang on. Again, this is something that along those lines you could have done that whole Chicago kind of story. I could see that sort of David Tennant running something like that. You could see him in a very sharp suit.
It definitely would have brought bad luck if you'd done the tux, though.
Very good point. Very good point. I've got a 3-star review here from Michel Siskoid Albert. I'll presume it's Albert rather than Albert if it's Michel at the start. He says, or they say, part sequel to both State of Decay and The Five Doctors, part pseudo-historical set in Prohibition-era Chicago, this Doctor Who New Adventure seems to promise vampire gangsters, but doesn't really deliver on that. Not to say it isn't fun anyway, with great atmosphere, such as the Chandler-esque narration by Private Dick Decker in places, and a certain humour. Dicks has the wit to make fun of himself and his target book's work. So, while things don't quite come together, the plot's being connected only by the thinnest thread, and the big bad gets owned all too easily, the parts are far more than the whole. Man, for someone who thinks vampires are extra lame, and is really sick of that particular fad, I've absorbed a heck of a lot of vampire fiction lately. There we go. That's, again,
just a thought.
It's all right.
Was this before the Buffy movie?
See, I'm not a Buffy person. I've always started.
No, neither am I.
I don't know. It could be probably be around that time because I remember it being covered in SFX.
Yeah.
So it probably would be around similar sort of time.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, kind of, if Terrance was trying to jump onto the vampire zeitgeist. Right. We have
Have you got a final review for us there?
We have a 2-star review from Daniel Edwards.
Oh.
Yeah. This was a hot mess, even by Doctor Who standards. A multi-narrative novel with vampires, gangsters, Time Lords, and mind parasites, alternating between the first and third person styles with no semblance of regularity whatsoever. And to top it all off, the so-called insurmountable threats are all dealt with easily in the space of a few minutes, so that you never feel really in danger. Poor by Doctor Who novel standards, and a serious letdown from Dicks after the brilliant taut pacing of Time Worm Exodus. He clearly struggles to write for the 7th Doctor because he was never involved with the series at that point, even to the extent of writing a novelisation, and it shows through the poor characterisation of him here.
Daniel Edwards, I think you're talking, in Scotland we would say you're talking a load of keech. You're talking out of your bum.
I was about to
That's
say, you're
nonsense.
talking in a way that is impossible when you're sitting down.
Exactly. That was far more politely than my translation. Anybody wants to know what keech is? It's what dogs tend to leave behind and you have to clean up and put in a plastic bag afterwards. There's a good Scottish word of the day for you. But yeah, I completely disagree with that. Just because somebody's not been involved with the show at that point on screen, I mean, that's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. He's very much, he gets the New Adventures manipulator Doctor, but he also has the fun Doctor as well.
And he has the really big thing of the New Adventures. The Doctor has a plan and it goes horrendously wrong. This is something we forget about the 7th Doctor New Adventures. We think of him as the great manipulator. No. He could fill an entire series of Dennis Norden's It'll Be Alright on the Night.
Yeah. Where there's been a bit of a cock up.
Yes, I was trying to keep it polite.
Well, I said it's allowed in that context.
Yes,
It wasn't like a rude word. But yeah. But no, generally, looking at those, I think it's a fair summing up of it. I think this is evidently a book that anybody who's read it, apart from those 6 idiots and Daniel Edwards, seem to like it. So yeah, I think it is one that I really enjoyed revisiting, and more than happy to. I'll be happy to give this a reread again in another couple of years.
Yeah, so would I. It's a great fun read.
Yep, or even better than rereading it, I could think of something where I could almost listen to it. James, tell us about your YouTube channel, because we've mentioned it in the past.
Okay, so a few years back, without going into great detail, I fell very ill and I had to learn to walk again, to talk again, all kinds of things. And it was approaching Christmas and everyone was doing, as they do on social media, wonderful things like, the Christmas advent calendars and stuff. And I had this idea that A, I'm a useless artist, and B, I was trying to find a way to get my voice working again, to get my brain working again. And I thought, well, everyone's doing Christmas Advent, so what could I do for the 12 days of Christmas? Yeah. And I had the idea of just doing kind of like readings of short stories. It seems like, along with the preludes, you had those brief encounters in Doctor Who magazines. There's been loads of short stories over the years. I thought, and I'd found 11 of them that I could do. And I thought, well, I wonder how difficult it would be to actually do a full-blown Virgin New Adventure. So I thought, I'll give it a shot, because try it. And I thought, well, do I pick a good one or no? I'll go with Time Worm Genesis. And apart from the fact it was not what I remembered at all, it took me an age to do, because I was still learning how to do the editing. I was still learning how to breathe again. But I had great fun. I was like, oh wow, tell you what, Exodus carries on from the end of Genesis. I might as well just do Exodus as well. And I think there's now on my YouTube channel, I think there's 20 complete novels, something like that. I've even done a couple of like non-Who ones. There's a Sapphire and Steel on there, there's Blake Seven on there. There's a Benny on there. I love doing the Benny. Benny I broke my own rules for, but it's Benny. And yeah, I do another podcast with a couple of American friends. It's just like it's called 3 Do Who, and it's an entry-level podcast for Doctor Who, kind of talking about the basics of it. And we said we were going to do one about Romana. And I've just done Paradise of Death as a novel, purely because I wanted to do the voices for it. And I was trying to think of what one to do next, and I had a great long list of ideas. And then when my friend said, we're going to do Romana as the topic, I thought, okay, Blood Harvest, because it brings Romana back into the universe. It's a great introduction to her. And I then thought, that means I can do Chicago accents, I can do Al Capone, I can do Ace again, and I have had an absolute blast doing it. Just as you said at the start, apologies to anyone listening in Chicago, or Ireland, or Scotland, England, Gallifrey. It's a brilliant one for voices, because say you've got the first person, you've got the third person, and yeah, who does not want to sit there reading out loud gangsters, vampires, and everything? I feel very bad, though, because I know that the 3 companions in it and Sylvester McCoy are all still with us, so therefore could potentially hear my massacring of their voices. But yeah, Blood Harvest, it's fantastic. HB HooTube. The idea is that I'm going to try and go back to doing 1 book a month. But yeah, BBC never did them in order, so I've abandoned the whole kind of, I will do Time Worm, I will do Cat's Cradle, I will do, and I'm now picking and choosing. But yeah, Blood Harvest is just, and yes, there's some wonderful action sequences which really were so much fun to read, and reading out loud Benny creeping around the tower, it's just dripping with atmosphere. And I think genuinely, out of all the ones that I've done so far on HB HooTube, it's my joint favourite one to have read.
Wow, yeah. That's fantastic. Oh, I've been re-listening to your Falls the Shadow as my prep for the episodes that's coming up on that. So thank you very much for doing that. It's a great listen. So
yeah, that's a strange one. But again, I did it because it was a strange one. My intention now is to try and do books that are interesting in one way or another. So not necessarily just the good ones, but ones like Falls the Shadow, which people overlook or have got different stories or whatever. So yeah, but that was 13 hours. Oh.
Yeah, well, I'm about 7 hours into it, so I've got the last 6 hours to go. So they keep my morning walks lively.
Okay. So. But say there will be a link to Blood Harvest in the description for this.
There certainly will be,
and
the channel in general as well for those who want to hear the others.
And
so everything's in the show notes.
I will be very cruel and tease and say that the next one I'm doing, which I'm in the middle of at the moment, ties in with Blood Harvest.
Oh.
But it's not goth opera.
There's only one way to find out.
Yes.
Stay tuned, as John Nathan Turner would have said back in the day. Fantastic. Well, James, thank you so much for your time and coming on.
Oh, it's been brilliant. It has been really...
Really enjoyed it. Will you come back another day?
Oh, definitely. I'm a child of the wilderness era. You know, I grew up on those books. I love them unreservedly, even The Pit, which I have done.
Yes.
Oh, God. If I can read that, I can read anything.
Very true. So, as you know, at this point of the show, before we go, we like to nominate a song to play it with, or a tune. Now, I do have a nomination. You can veto it, and I'm let you overrule as the guest. I was thinking that in the course of Blood Harvest, the Doctor mentions the tune that's played in The Five Doctors and the Harp, which is given a name here, Rassilon's Lament.
Yes.
Shall we play with that?
Let's go out with Rassilon's Lament.
James, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Been an absolute pleasure.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.